military escalation between India and Pakistan appears to be winding down for now as crossfire on the line of control has decreased. Still, many say the crucial underlying problems between the two need to be addressed in an urgent manner. Will resurgent nationalist and religious sentiment in India and Pakistan create popular support for conflict escalation? What is at stake for players including Russia, China and the United States? To discuss these issues and more, I'm very happy to be joined by Atul Aneja, Associate Editor of The Hindu, Zoon Ahmed Han, Visiting Fellow from Tsinghua University. Pavel Fagerho, Russian defense analyst, will join us from Moscow via telephone. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Ray. Welcome to our discussion here. It seems pretty quiet across the line of control at this moment. Is that largely because of the political will, first of all, on the Pakistani side, that your Prime Minister have invited the Indians to have a talk and to have a constructive solution? What is happening now?
Well, as you speak of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, I think as soon as he took office, the first thing he said was he wants positive dialogue with India. Even after the incident of Balakot, which was perhaps the first test that the Indian forces came in Pakistan since 1971, throughout, from top to bottom, from the political leadership to other stakeholders to the public, we did not want any kind of warmongering rhetoric against India. So definitely Pakistan and the Pakistani leadership all want positivity towards India. We want to have dialogue, and dialogue is conducive for the long-term interests of Pakistan, economic, social, political, otherwise.
What is the latest response from New Delhi?
Well, right at this moment, we are focusing on visible steps by Pakistan to counter terrorism inside Pakistan, and as well as diplomacy is in full gear, because we have the 1267 committee meeting on the 16th of this month. And Masood Azhar, the leader of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, will he be declared as an international terrorist or not? And will Pakistan come in the way of doing it? Will China support it? These are the issues which are engaging. So it's moved on the diplomatic track from the military, but terrorism remains the prime focus.
The immediate issue, I'm afraid, Han, is whether the Pakistani government can maintain an effective control on what is called a terrorist organization. First of all, your understanding about the Masood army.
The thing is that Pakistan, when we talk about extremism and terrorist outfits, Pakistan has taken tremendous measures to counter this problem. The peak of this issue was in 2008, and since then we have categorically been able to tackle this issue in Pakistan. When you talk about Jaish-e-Mohammed and other extremist groups, they have been banned, and Pakistan, as on every level, on the political level, on the level of other stakeholders, is willing not only to deal with this up front, but we also have the National Action Plan in place. We have so many other, we have the political will. So Pakistan is doing everything it can in terms of its current capacity to counter the issues, and these are not just issues for India. These are issues for Pakistan domestically as well. We have suffered the most in terms of human lives, in terms of financial, economic issues because of extremism and terrorism in our country. So I think whereas India is correct that Pakistan should tackle these problems within its own borders, at the same time the way India is approaching the issue seems to be counterintuitive. To isolate Pakistan up front and boldly, to isolate Pakistan in every way, in SAARC, even cricket and the Olympics, just because they're saying that Pakistan is not able to tackle it effectively, I don't think that's the right way ahead. We are both members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We have platforms to discuss this amicably. If India has a problem, the best way is to have dialogue. And I don't see why India is unwilling to sit with Pakistan on the negotiation table and even talk about these concerns.
Your take?
Well, we have to see in a little broader context the present situation. And when you look back, there's a history to why India is first saying that there should be visible crackdown on terrorist groups, especially Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba. Now, if you go back, in 2008, we had the Mumbai attacks. This was by the Lashkar-e-Taiba. And it's not Kashmir, it's not anywhere else. It's in the heart of India, in the commercial capital of India. We went for a joint investigation with Pakistan on that. And to Pakistan's credit, some of their investigating agencies also went further ahead to it. But when we were close to clinching and actually arresting the suspects, of whom we had plenty of evidence which was shared, Pakistan backed away from that. And that was a big blow to India, that despite all the effort to go ahead and negotiate and not to go ahead for any kind of a military sort of a instrument, it yielded no result. Following that, Prime Minister Modi in 2017 December, he visited Nawaz Sharif when his daughter was to be married. It was a surprise visit. And within days of that, we had the Pathankot attack. Now, in that, again, Jaish-e-Mohammed is involved. We again went ahead for a joint investigation, no result. So there is a certain history as to why we have arrived to this position, that now is the time. We can't take, after 40 Indian soldiers were killed in Pulwama on February 14th, that the time for talk is over. You take action. We don't want to do anything. You crack down on your militants, visible action, dismantle the infrastructure. The moment you do that, we are ready for talks. So it's time for Pakistan to walk the talk and act. She's right.
But
the 2008.
Is that time for more action?
I think it's not the time to stop conversation at all. And it's not just me saying this, but even voices within India are asking, what was up with all of that hate-mongering rhetoric, all of this talk about going to war with Pakistan? I mean, I'm not saying that what's happening on both sides is ideal, but at the same time, the way Indians reacted from the media, I mean, we all saw the way Indian media was reporting 300 people killed in Pakistan, and nobody tried to verify where these reports are coming from. And then you are radicalizing people against a country for what? Of course, Pakistan should deal with the issues, and Pakistan condemned the attack in Pulwama. But there were voices within India, Indian media saying, Indian politicians saying, that actually Pulwama is not an external matter. It is not a matter to do with Pakistan. It is also India's own policies towards Kashmir. And this is something that needs to be correctly checked. It's not a surface problem.
It seems the Indian patience is wearing thin very quickly, and they call for action to be taken seriously. The issue is, Han, whether extremism is spinning out of control in your country. I mean, Pakistani politicians, government people have all suffered heavily. Heavy casualties were inflicted upon, for example, children of the military.
The APS.
They were killed so brutally.
Yes.
We have been following the situation in your country. There's no doubt about the political will in Islamabad to crack down on extremism. But why the Indians show little patience for the endless attacks on their people in Kashmir and inside the heartland of India?
I think we need to understand Pakistan's experience as well. There's a context to India's perspective at this point, and there is also Pakistan's own experience with extremism. We, as a nation, even when from our perspective, when India came all the way to Balakot, it could have been the point where Pakistani said, let's go to war. But we've suffered a lot at the hands of extremism, and 2008 was the peak. Of course, you know the attack on the APS children. Of course, you know that there's been a lot of bloodshed and violence. However, if you look at the numbers of the casualties, those are reducing. This is the only way to see if a policy is effective. And in that sense, the National Action Plan has been effective. So we are on the right track. On the other hand, when it comes to India, the issue of Kashmir or certain other issues surrounding the incident, they have nothing to do with Pakistan. And these are voices within Indian academia, within Indian politics. And I'm just saying that there is no reason to stop dialogue. There is no reason to create hate.
To my knowledge, Pakistan paid a heavy price since 9/11, the terrorist attacks in the United States, because Islamabad was forced to take side under huge pressure from the Pentagon. Let me cross over to Pavel Falkenhorst, the Russian analyst about military affairs. Hello, Pavel. What kind of role does Russia play in seeking a diplomatic solution?
Of course, Moscow publicly announced that it would like to be an intermediary to defuse the situation. Pakistan agreed that Russia should, but India actually humiliated Russia by saying that they don't want and don't need any intermediaries. And this actually demonstrates that the Russian influence in the subcontinent has changed very much compared to what it was during the old times of the Cold War, when India was Russia, the Soviet Union, Pakistan was America now, and Chinese too, and the roles were kind of very set. and Russia was a superpower. Now Russia is still, of course, a major supplier of arms to India, but Russian influence in New Delhi has obviously waned. Russia has improved relations with Pakistan and would want to have a kind of more balanced relationship with the two nations. That has been achieved, but the overall Russian capability of putting influence and even pressure on the two sides to kind of get together and stop fighting and begin talking is greatly diminished. Russia is a great supplier of arms to India, but India has other suppliers and has very much diversified and does not see itself as a Russian client at all right now. And that means that Russia is a bit high and dry. We offered our aid and it was not taken.
How do you assess the Russian influence in the wake of the Cold War in India?
I think there has been a general weakening of Russian influence with the collapse of the Soviet Union. But I think Russian influence has been expanding gradually over time. Especially in the Middle East, you see Russian influence is definitely much more. You see in the Syrian situation they are around. In Venezuela, you see the Russian influence being visible over there. In Turkey, for example. So Russia is gradually coming back. Coming specifically to relationship with India, I disagree with your other guest, because it is a great relationship. I was just coming back from Wujin, where there was a fabulous one-on-one between our foreign minister and foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov. Before coming here, I just heard the news about Russia supplying a third Akula class nuclear submarine to India. Now, nuclear submarine is not an ordinary weapon. These are strategic weapons, and unless you have an extremely close political relationship, you don't get this kind of thing. So I disagree with that. Third thing is, after the Pulwama attack, Russian President Putin spoke to Modi immediately, and we have had communication ever since. So as far as the Pulwama and Kashmir issue is concerned, we have always since 1972 maintained that this has to be tackled bilaterally, so there is no deviation from that. That does not mean that Russian influence doesn't wane in New Delhi.
The BJP will soon have a parliamentary election too. To what degree do you think a tough stance by Prime Minister Modi will help reinforce the position of the BJP and help the BJP survive the scrutiny of the media, domestic politics, and above all, the Congress Party?
Well, I think the response to Pulwama, when 40 Indian soldiers were killed, I do not necessarily link that to the elections. I mean, it had to be a tough stand because of the position which the Modi administration had taken all through, that they're going to be tough on terror. And when it comes to that, it was time for them to walk the talk. And therefore the Balakot attacks, before that the surgical strikes. So it is consistent with the declared policy of this present administration of Prime Minister Modi. Now, whether that will help him in the elections as a byproduct, I think it might help him in the elections, because he comes out as a decisive leader at a time when India is hit badly by terrorism. At the same time, there are voices which are saying that, you know, please do not exploit. We are genuinely pained by the terrorism action. There should be a response, but do not take political advantage of it. And those voices are also being heard in the Indian not in the Indian establishment, but within the think tanks and other areas of the society.
In the vocabulary of Western political science, there is a set phrase: democracies don't go to war. Well, India is a democracy, Pakistan is a democracy. India, I would say something about the big mouth of the media. The media remains very tough on the crackdown on Tamil Tiger in Sri Lanka, when China came to their rescue, providing arms that Kuala Lumpur was very hungry for at the defining moment of the war against the Tamil Tiger. The India media was very tough on Tibet, Doklam, our territorial disputes. The India was very tough on Pakistan. You enjoy the freedom of the media. You don't have the First Amendment like the United States, but the media in India is very free, I know. My question is, will that inevitably influence the political decision media is said to be very powerful in shaping public perceptions about the current affairs issues. And therefore, are we talking about the media warfare or geopolitical rivalry between the two countries, Pakistan and India?
I think media definitely plays a role because it not only represents your perspective to your own people and shapes the way they think, but it is also your voice and image to the outside world. So of course media is the most important in terms of communicating your perspective. However, having said that, I don't know if I necessarily agree with your statement that it's the free Indian media which is this vocal. I think that to a great extent, a free media should be the one that also questions its own government, that asks for verification of whatever is being told by whatever authority.
Have you ever questioned your government?
And it's Atul is a very fine journalist.
As a senior journalist from The Hindu, a very influential newspaper of a big circulation in India, have you ever questioned the policy making of your government?
Absolutely. 1997 comes to my mind.
Yes, and I think Atul is is maybe a minority if we think about the journalists that were representing the incidents after the Pulwama attack. And in this sense, I would like to ask Atul, for example, there are a lot of clips that are going viral of Indian journalists that are asking their government the question that what should we believe? You know, we saw videos, and this was legit Indian media outlets that were saying 3:48 a.m. this happened, 4:10 a.m. this happened, 300 people died. I mean, and then after days, they say, well, you know, what were we supposed to believe? If Pakistan said they have a pilot, they showed a photo, and nobody would publish that news unless we had evidence. So to some extent, it's not just a free media. I mean, we can't say that every media that's vocal is free, and we should check what are the sources, who owns media outlets, what are the interests, vested interests.
In China, we are also wrestling with the issue about whether we have been put on trial by the social media. In many cases, when a sensational story broke out in China, the People's Court at different levels would have to live up to the expectations of the social media. The social media would boiling up with the public sentiments about what's wrong, what should be brought to justice. So let me go back to Pavel. Pavel, India and Pakistan have both been recruited by the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and to my knowledge, China had some difficult moment in making the decision, along with the Russian friends, of course, about whether these two major powers in South Asia should be recruited because of their geopolitical tensions and the issue of history. So do you think China, along with Russia, could join hands in exerting greater pressure on both sides, India and Pakistan, to ease the tensions and to seek a constructive solution? In other words, what do you think of the role that China should play? It seems China Foreign Minister and State Councillor Wang Yi did call his counterpart in both India and Pakistan. Is that one of the major reasons why the pilot of India was released immediately to show goodwill?
Well, quite maybe that Chinese influence helped. Of course, the decision was ultimately apparently made by Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And yes, there is a common goal that unites everyone. It's the pushing back of Islamist terrorism groups, which are everybody's enemies. They're the enemies of Russia, China, India, Pakistan, United States, and the Shanghai Security Organization is primarily its prime task is to prevent Islamist extremism taking over former Soviet Central Asia and destabilizing the entire region, and that's a very important goal also, I know, for India. So there is a common cause and a common enemy, and that's why Russia was primarily pressing for India and Pakistan to join the Shanghai Organization to promote these common goals that could, if not unite, at least help prevent major conflicts between India and Pakistan and other members of the organization. And yes, so there is a cause and there is a goal, and it's possible to work together, but you have to concentrate on that cause and that goal.
Given the role of SCO as designed at the earliest stage of its development, and particularly the very constructive dialogue that we had with Prime Minister Modi in Wuhan, following Doklam, and immediately the SCO summit in Qingdao. How do you assess the help of SCO and the role China could play?
I think on both counts, China's role as well as SCO is extremely important, because I do see India's future in a long-term perspective with Eurasia and not with any other grouping. That's my personal view. Now, when it comes to Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Russian Foreign Minister already mentioned the counter-terrorism mechanism called RATS within the SCO.
From day one of SCO, we vow to fight three evil forces, three bad forces.
Excellent.
Separatism, extremism, and terrorism.
Sure. So that can be a forum for a dialogue, because both countries are members, maybe not on track 1, maybe track 1.5, where you actually brainstorm solutions. But ultimately it can give recommendations to track 1, which will be the interlocutors from the Government of India and Government of Pakistan. But I think a lot of facilitation work, the background work of finding realistic solutions can come from the SCO, and especially China's equation first with Pakistan and also its growing relationship with India, I think makes it ideal as a constructive player, which it has so far, which we have seen after the Pulwama attacks have taken place. We had Foreign Minister and State Councillor Wang Yi had an excellent conversation with Sushma Swaraj, our External Affairs Minister, on February 27th, the day when a plane had crashed on the Pakistani, what we call the area with Pakistan of Kashmir. So during that time itself, State Councillor Wang Yi made a very excellent observation, along with Sergei Lavrov, that we would like to eradicate the breeding grounds of terrorism, which was much appreciated by Sushma Swaraj. So, you know, what are the breeding grounds of terrorism? These are these particular training camps. These are the particular organizations which sponsor these camps. So if China is opposed to that, at the same time, he made it very clear that Pakistan is not a state sponsor of terrorism. So don't blame Pakistan, but we can go ahead and target the extremist groups and the terrorists. I think there's a fine distinction which China has made, and I think that is a very subtle point which was made, which was agreed by our foreign minister.
Ms. Han, are you surprised that the 3 permanent members of the UN Security Council, the United States, China, and Russia, work together to urge a calm, to call for diplomacy rather than escalation of tensions across the line of control in Kashmir following the attacks?
Of course, South Asia is a very important region, and both India and Pakistan have had personal links historically or presently with all 3 of these countries. So I think definitely everyone wants stability between India and Pakistan. Speaking of the SCO, it is actually the only functional platform that India and Pakistan share at the moment. SARC is obviously not operating the way it should be. So I think it's a very good opportunity for both our countries to communicate effectively with each other, to share intelligence, because this is the first time we're actually even on the same level that we could be sharing valuable intelligence with each other. Given that, I think both India and Pakistan need to play a role that is mature and understand, India also needs to understand that if there is some doubt that something in Pakistan is not, India is not okay with certain activities, then there is a certain way to do it. There is a certain way, go to the SCO, go to certain platforms, talk on a multilateral level if you don't want to on a bilateral level. So for sure, the fact that we are members of the SCO and the fact that other countries are taking interest should mean that there is no need for unilateral strikes.
Ms. Han, you know, the China-Pakistan economic corridor proves to be very controversial in India, and that's the major reason why Prime Minister Modi refused to attend the BRI summit in Beijing. But the Chinese are also concerned about law and order and the security scenario inside your country because of the surge in extremism somehow. So can you say honestly to the Chinese audience here that we have good reasons to feel safe in assisting our Pakistani brothers and sisters, constructing the economic corridor and many other things that we need to do?
You know, of course, I understand that there would be not just the Chinese but other countries as well, China being the biggest stakeholder at this moment when it comes to development, economic development in Pakistan, that have their concerns. But let's not forget that Pakistan has improved drastically in terms of countering extremism within our country. Let's also remember that China and Pakistan are partners in this fight as well. Pakistan has been able to achieve a lot because of cooperation with China on the security and strategic front. So for the Chinese viewers, for other viewers, for Pakistanis as well, it is our #1 priority to tackle extremism within Pakistan, and at the same time for the region to understand that the problems we are facing are not homegrown only. We have evidence of external involvement. Certain cases are currently in international courts, and we need the support of the international community to understand that Pakistan has been in a vulnerable position, and it's in our greatest interest to tackle this.
Let me go back to Pavel. Are you with us, Pavel?
Yes, I am.
So what do you think of the discussion here between Indian guest speaker and Pakistani lady about the control of extremism in Pakistan? Are you optimistic that Islamabad has done enough?
Well, there's always a thing. You can always do more. It's obvious. Yes, there were reports, and there was maybe some kind of collusion, at least some time ago, between some elements of the Pakistani intelligence service and some of the extremist groups. Most likely in Islamabad they understood that that's not a very good policy at all, that these guys will come back and bite you. And this is that has changed, and that gives a good hope that there can be a more permanent solution to these problems. Again, all working against these bad guys, the Islamist radicals.
There's no question about the moral high ground. Pavel, let me ask you very quickly. The Chinese are also concerned for a number of years, perhaps since the golden days of late president of the Russian Federation, Mr. Boris Yeltsin, that you have been selling very advanced weaponry to India. And, you know, you also sell advanced weaponry to Vietnam. Apparently, the Chinese have been following this very closely. It doesn't mean that we are at serious and hopeless loggerheads with these two countries, but we do have disputes with these two major powers. Russia, as a very close strategic partner of China since Boris Yeltsin. Tell me why Russia has been doing this very quickly, because we have to wind up the discussion.
Well, it's primarily, of course, for money. It's an important market to sell. But there is also a feeling in Moscow that we should balance our stakes in Asia. We should not be just only, say, with China. We should spread it out. That's much more advantageous for Russia from all points of view. That's a traditional view.
Okay. Commercially, it's a must for Moscow to earn enough foreign exchange. That's understand. That's very well understood on our side, but it remains a serious concern. With that, we come to the conclusion of this wonderful brainstorming, especially between our Indian guest speaker and Pakistani lady, about the latest border clash in Kashmir. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.